Hello, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to get extremely comfortable, because your second mission, should you choose to accept that, is to listen to a story. So, if you've accepted your missions while you're getting very comfortable, and this is getting even more convoluted, I will tell you that this podcast and all of these stories are supported by excellent patrons. And if you like the stories, you would like to receive bonus stories, make me do a little happy dance, and become a patron too, you can do that on patreon.com/can I tell you a story. You will receive bonus stories every 4 weeks, and there are a bunch of them already there waiting for you. And I think that's everything. Have you succeeded in your first mission? Are you very comfortable? I hope so. It's time for the second mission. Let's begin. Bolt poles the raft, heading out to Tin Hat. The water is the sky is the water. On the lake the rafts wake, trails, gentle ripples to the banks on either side. Folk are strange out there, the whole lot of them stuffed in the deep caves up the top of the valley. Living in the dark, won't ever even look at the sky. There's even a church in there, the altar carved blind into a stalagmite with the top chiselled flat. Bolt's never seen it, because no one's ever seen it, the sacred darkness, knowing no light. But he knows it's there, because that's where he was born. The raft grinds into the stones at the edge of the lake. On the rocky shore, he sits and builds a fire as though the dark doesn't wait for him in the caves above. He spears a fish and cooks it in the coals, looking up at the stars like he could sit there all night. There is no moon, but the stars turn the lake silver. He doesn't sleep, but he feels like he is dreaming. He's not afraid of the stars, but he is afraid of the waiting dark. He spent the first years of his life there, in Tin Hat, with the Lightless. Of course they didn't call it Tin Hat, but his refusal to call it by its own name is another small form of the rebellion that started the day that he left, or was taken. Which it was depends on whim, or his audience, or the phase of the moon. He's told so many different versions of the tale he no longer knows the truth. One thing was true, though. He was never going back. And here he is, going back. Except, of course, no one ever can truly go back where they began. He's a different man now, living a different life, telling different lies to himself, different lies to the world. He can feel the memories waiting. True memories or more lies? Doesn't really matter, he supposes. All of them are ghosts. He'd been haunting the bounty board, back in the twisting, tangled city he now calls home, back across the lake, looking for a job to earn him his next meal. The board was full of the usual, people looking for stolen jewels that may or may not have been stolen from them. Heavies wanted to guard a caravan out across the mountains. Heavies wanted to stand in front of someone who'd offended someone else. Bolt could have taken any of those jobs, and he had many times before. Except there in the corner was a faded page, mostly covered by cleaner, newer notes. The bounty paid for one of the Lightless would keep him in meals for a year. City superstition is strong. You don't go over the lake. You don't go into the dark. You leave Tin Hat for the crazies. They sacrifice people to the old gods. They speak in tongues. They aren't people at all, but demons 10 feet tall. They'll eat your children and sacrifice you. Tall tales for the credulous. Surely none of them are truthful. Surely. Bolt was a child when he left. Reality was different then. Bolt came out over the lake, though. Perhaps he can go back in, hold out a hand and pull someone out, the way someone once held a hand out for him. Would it be a betrayal or a rescue? Bolt doesn't know, and deep thoughts don't suit him. That's why he likes the light. The boundary between inside and outside is clearer, action is everything, and it's harder to get lost in thought. He pulled the page from the bounty board and folded it in half, tucked it into his shirt pocket, found a raft, tried not to think too hard about what he was doing, and now here he sits, wishing he'd thought a bit harder after all. Under the bright, cold stars, sweating as he waits for the day. Fear or fever? Doesn't really matter. He's got a job to do. He leaves the coals glowing bright and walks away from them up the hill. He shivers at the cave mouth, looming above like it's going to swallow him whole. He steps into the deeper dark and, feeling 5 years old again, navigates by feel alone. He knows the church when he finds it, from how big it feels around him. The congregation faces forwards. Their collective breath is a wave. Eyes open, eyes closed. It matters not. Bolt remembers the first time he saw light. He knows now that it was the blackest night, and even that exploded in his mind like a firework. Nothing could have prepared him for it. How could he have understood before he saw it? He'd known nothing like it. He'd been sitting here, like these people now sit, murmuring prayers, and someone had taken his hand. He stood quietly when the hand had tugged him to his feet, followed when it led him out of the church and out of Tin Hat and across the lake to a whole new world and a different sort of life. He'd never really stopped to ask why. In the darkness, Bolt reaches out and finds a hand, warmer than his. Unlike his own willing acquiescence, this hand is rigid, resisting. He loosens his grip a little, tugs. The hand pulls away with a soft cry, and the sound ripples across the cavernous space, and Bolt feels the attention of the congregation turn towards him. He backs away, slow and careful, afraid he'll back into someone. His heels hit flesh, and balance is gone. He doesn't cry out as he falls, tangles with other bodies in the dark. Hands reach for him, and this time it's him who pulls away, trying to find an exit he can't see, straining to hear the way out over the sound of his own breath. It takes some time for him to realize there's a hand in his, to realize that he's being led, feeling 5 years old again, through the bodies and out of the church and away. Gradually, the light grows. They turn a corner, and he gasps the same as he did the first time. The sky is vast and still lit with millions of points of light mirrored on the surface of the lake. A ruddy glow below them from the coals of his fire, still burning. The hand in his lets go, and he turns to see who it belongs to. A woman, well into middle age, hair in a long dark plait down her back. She's looking up, and the stars are reflected in her eyes. Wonder makes her face look young. This time he takes the lead. They don't speak. Down the hill to the fire. The bones of his fish still sit on the flat rock he left them on. Time plays tricks on him. He's been gone less than an hour by the stars, wheeling towards morning, but he feels born into a new age. The woman reaches out to touch a coal, and he pulls her back before she burns her fingers. There is no reason to stay. Bolt leads the woman to the raft, settles her on it, and poles them out onto the lake. The paper from the bounty board feels like its own coal in his pocket. Deep thoughts don't suit him, but it's hard not to think them in the quiet on the lake. They've followed him out of the dark. Is this a betrayal or a rescue? In the church their roles reversed, and this silent woman with stars in her eyes took his hand and led him safely out of Tin Hat. To sell her, collect the bounty promised, or to set her free. Bolt doesn't know what kind of man he is, what kind of man he wants to be. He feels the echoing touch of all the hands that have held his, and wipes his palm on his trouser leg. He reaches into his shirt pocket for the paper from the bounty board and holds it out. The woman takes it from his fingers and doesn't look at it. Her eyes are dark, like her hair. From a pocket, she pulls a heavy purse and presses it into his still outstretched hand. Bolt's mind lights up with questions he knows he'll never know the answers to. The water is the sky is the water. The raft's wake trails gentle ripples to the banks on either side as they head back to the twisted, tangled city. Bounty paid. Thanks for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this story. If you did, and you'd like more stories, perhaps you would like to become a patron. Patrons receive bonus stories and other things which you can read about on patreon.com/Can I Tell You a Story. Until next time, Bolt might not know what kind of man he is or what kind of man he wants to be. Do you know what kind of person you are and what kind of person you would like to be? Deep thoughts following you out of the dark.